Welcome to the QEM Heroes webinar series. I'm Christine Wood, and I serve as the Assistant Program Director for the Heroes Fellows Program at QEM. And for more than 30 years, QEM has been a national catalyst for STEM education transformation and research capacity building. Currently, the QEM network serves nearly 900 colleges and universities and reaches more than 8,000 individuals nationwide. This webinar is part of the QEM Heroes Initiative. The Heroes program brings together experienced researchers who have worked in federal agencies to lend their expertise and support to the STEM research and education communities. Our fellows are here to provide tools and tips for navigating the funding landscape, developing STEM programs and partnerships, and improving talent retention in in-demand fields. Our goal is to build sustainable ecosystems for STEM research and education at colleges and universities across the country, not just at those with large federal funding portfolios. We hope this series promotes engagement with our Heroes Fellows and provides valuable resources to our participants. During this webinar, please use the Q&A tool to ask questions of the panelists. Panelists and moderators will moderate and answer questions during the webinar as time allows. The chat function is also open to connect with people, provide comments. Once the presentation is over, we will moderate a discussion and give attendees the opportunity to raise their hands and ask questions live. And I'm happy to introduce our presenters today. Dr. Chris Atchison is a former program director in the Division of Equity for Excellence in STEM within the Directorate for STEM Education at the U.S. National Science Foundation. Chris's research focuses on inclusive science education and designing and implementing accessible field learning and research experiences to support students with disabilities in geoscience academic programs. His region of service in the HEROES program is Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. Karen Ford Jackson is a grants and resource development professional with experience supporting federally funded education, innovation, and community development programs. She has held roles with the U.S. Department of Education as a management and program analyst, where she provided guidance to grant oversight, technical assistance, data-informed support to strengthen program performance, compliance, and strategic impact. Her HEROES region of service is Virginia and West Virginia. And Dr. Naomi Hall Byers is a former program director in the Division of Social and Economic Sciences, Directorate for Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences at the U.S. National Science Foundation. Naomi's research focuses on examining cultural and contextual factors that contribute to health and educational disparities and inequities among historically marginalized populations. Additionally, she investigates identity and development and the phenomenon of shifting among Black women in STEM fields. Her region of service is North and South Carolina. And without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to our presenters today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. I want to welcome everyone, and let me get our slides together. Give me a thumbs up if you could see those. Awesome. All right. So today we're going to talk about establishing communication and building relationships with federal program officers. As Christine introduced us, I just want to distinguish myself and say I'm Naomi Hall Byers, and I'm going to cover the first part of our webinar. It's been a day already. All right. So thank you for attending, and I'm going to give you an idea of the three main objectives that we have for this presentation. First is to understand the role of a federal program officer. Second is to identify strategies to initiate, build, and sustain working relationships with federal program officers, and to hopefully improve communication and collaboration with your federal program officer as you grow your research capacity and programs. We also want to provide some tips for you to think about. So you will see tips on the bottom of some of the slides. So our tip in terms of the overall webinar or the overall topic is that strong relationships with federal program officers can lead to smoother reporting, better compliance, and valuable insights for future funding. So today we hope to have lots of discussion and to answer as many of your questions as possible. So please note that we are open to take your questions throughout the webinar. So please feel free to put them in the Q&A section as they come up. So to begin, we want to get an idea of which agencies you are most interested in. So we do have a quick Zoom poll. So, if you can take a moment, to which federal agency are you most likely to submit proposals? So please pick your top choice. And if it is not listed, please click others. So we'll wait a few moments.
Folks are still actively voting, so I'm leaving this window open for a moment. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share results.
Oh, great. Okay. So we have, let's see, so NSF is primary. We have a split between NIH and others not listed, and we'll talk about that. And then we have NASA. Department of Ed. Okay, awesome. So just to let you know, we have some of the former program officers from many of these agencies on this webinar as QEM heroes. So the panelists invite them to join into the discussion, provide additional tips and information as they see fit. Additionally, at the end of the webinar, we will put up contact information. And if you go to the Heroes webpage, you'll see the former agencies of the Heroes Fellows. If you have specific questions about a particular agency, please feel free to reach out to one of those heroes. We will all do our best to answer your questions and or point you in the right direction. So we're going to start off. What is a federal program officer? Um, when you think of a federal program officer, is this what you think of? Can you see that, Christine? Uh, uh, Federal program officers are not scary creatures designed to torment you, like Pennywise. We shouldn't haunt you in your dreams. You shouldn't be scared to reach out because a federal program officer is really your main point of contact within the federal agency. The roles and the responsibilities may differ based on the agency, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. However, the federal program officers are responsible for guiding and administering the programs that support the mission of the agency. So, as you take a look at this, these are what the panelists feel are sort of the main or the typical roles and responsibilities. And I'm just going to speak briefly about these 7. So you see over on the side, the merit review process. So federal program officers oversee the process of proposal review. Now, review panels differ depending upon the agency. For instance, a lot of people are familiar with NIH, and NIH uses the Center for Scientific Review to manage their structured process. While at NSF, the POs or the program officers oversee the selection and the review process of the panels. So one of the things that we want to keep in mind is that all federal agencies do not conduct the merit review process, the same funding recommendations, things of that nature. And that's why it's really important to ensure that you have a relationship with the program officers at the different agencies to ensure that you are understanding the processes and the policies for that particular agency. So as we go to funding recommendations, this also differs by agencies. Some program officers take the recommendations from the review panels, they review them, they look at the budget, they ensure that there is enough money in the program budget to cover those particular proposals, and then they forward those to leadership. Others, like NSF, the program officers have a little more leeway with award selection. So they can make some recommendations that maybe go against what the review panel recommended. And oftentimes, these recommendations are often based on portfolio balance. And so, this is just another reason why it's really important to have a relationship with your program officer. In terms of grant management, I'm sorry, woke up with a little scratchy throat today. In terms of grant management, program officers manage the PIs, answer their questions, help them handle their situations, and because they're the initial point of contact, they also are able to guide you if you have questions or concerns that's not within the scope of the federal program officer's position. They are able to guide you to who you might need to speak to get your question answered. Oftentimes, these are our budget related questions. Most program officers do not handle certain aspects of the budget. Stakeholder engagement, this is actually one of the best parts of being a federal program officer. Sort of engaging the scientific community, doing outreach. They're at conferences, they're working with external partners, and they're trying to recruit new PIs and new institutions to apply for grants from their programs and their agency. Monitoring performance and compliance. Program officers ensure that projects are on task. They read and provide feedback on reports, conduct site visits, and such. Program development. This is the strategic oversight of their program's portfolio. Oftentimes, program officers are considered to be content experts in their particular area or their program area. And so they stay on top of emerging research, emerging topics, pay attention to timelines, and think about whether programs need to modify or revise anything that they've done in the previous cycle. And last, we're going to go with policy oversight. So making sure that the program officers, along with the grantees, are clear on policies and procedures for the agencies. And since half of the participants are interested in NSF, most of you know that the policies and procedure manual for the National Science Foundation is called the PAPG. And so the program officers have to be versed in the PAPG and making sure that all of the grantees understand the policies and the procedures around awards for the agency. And so while there are tons of benefits for forming a positive relationship with program officers, we're just going to kind of talk about 5 kind of big umbrella areas. So confirmation, right? So program officers or having a relationship with program officers help to confirm proposal or program fit. They help to confirm that you're on the right track in terms of what you are proposing and how that fits within the mission of that particular program, that division, that directorate, and the agency as a whole. Guidance. So program officers help guide researchers through the grant review and awarding process. They're also able to make recommendations that you look at other programs and or agencies based on your topic area. Clarified expectations, right? So we're talking about things like project deliverables, understanding the processes, the policies, and the timelines. And so, in terms of having a positive relationship with the program officers, what it does do is it also enhances your credibility and the trust within the agency and leads to improved project performance and outcomes. Now, while there are many other benefits that you can have from just having a positive relationship with the federal program officers, I do invite you to drop in the chat if you feel that there are other benefits that don't fall within these 5 categories, so that everyone can see that there are a multitude of benefits. And then so I'll leave you with a tip Pre-proposal communication helps to establish a relationship with the federal program officer, and it also allows them to become familiar with your work. And once program officers are familiar with your work, it leads to some of the benefits that I mentioned here, like enhanced credibility and trust with the agency. It also puts you in a position where program officers, when funding opportunities come up, they may send those to you. They may contact you about those. So there are just a multitude of benefits. I am going to turn this over to Chris now to talk about initiating and building relationships with program officers.
Thank you, Naomi. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I just want to reiterate that Naomi and I, both being former NSF program officers and Karen being a program officer for the Department of Education, we are generalizing a lot of the information that we're sharing here with you. There's going to be all kinds of different ways that program officers will support their potential PIs. So you're going to find all kinds of personalities. And so what we are trying to do is to help you navigate what you're likely going to find when you reach out to the program officers. But ultimately, please remember, the program officer's job is to support you, is to bring in proposals, is to support good science. And so we can't do our job if we're not supporting you and getting the proposals that you are submitting. So understand that we want to speak with you. We want to support you. We want to be effective mentors and guides for you along the way. So establishing this relationship or developing a relationship, don't be afraid to reach out at any given time. And so the ideas here, the key principles being establish the communication, stay proactive, be concise and transparent with your goals, your own ideals, your beliefs, your values, all of those kinds of things. Maintain communication whenever possible. Keep it professional. Respect deadlines, boundaries, and workloads. Understand that your program officers are, especially now in the current landscape, they have a significant workload. As budgets come in, and if budgets come in late, like it has this year, they are under a giant workload to move those funds and to get the review process going and through. So maintain the adequate professionalism that should be due. Maintain your integrity. Be honest about the challenges and outcomes, the challenges that you face and the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve. The more that you can be open, transparent, honest about what it is you're doing, the better the program officer will be able to support you. And then treat your program officer as a partner, as a collaborative partner. Program officers cannot edit. They cannot be an auditor for what you're submitting. And the tip that we would provide here is that understand that program officers, we cannot give advice, but we can offer recommendations for things that you should consider. So understand too that with the communication, the key principle of communication, you can send emails, but understand that a program officer is probably going to be more transparent with you through conversation rather than through an email. So keep that in mind as well. Next slide, Naomi, please. And so how do you do this? So connect through phone, through email, introduce yourself. Think about any conferences that you're at. If you have program officers that are attending conferences, go up and introduce yourself. Make the connection any way you can. When you reach out through email, feel free to share a one-page description of your research ideas. And keep it to one page. Understand, go back to the whole professionalism with the workload. A lot of times, from my own personal experiences, if I were to see a one-page description come in, I would automatically respond in email to set up a 20 or 30-minute Zoom call with you to discuss your ideas, because you can get an overview of your idea out through a one-page description. but it's still not going to talk about a lot of the minutia, the finer details of your research proposal. So you can initiate that request for a meeting. You can send a one-page description of your research idea and ask for a time to meet and discuss. You're going to get a lot more information through the discussion of your research ideas than it would be if you're requesting a response to feedback. A program officer will be a lot more limited in the things that they'll say in response to an email of your one-page description than they typically would if you actually have a conversation with them. Now, again, a lot of program officers are different here. They would prefer to provide feedback through email. Some of them do. Myself, I prefer to have that conversation, and I think a lot of others do as well. Be sure that you introduce your organization and your mission clearly. And our tip for this would be, especially if you are a nonprofit or coming from industry. Academic institutions, you might have a specific mission or a vision if you are a center within an academic organization. So make sure that you provide that information clearly. Demonstrate your understanding of the program goals. And so one thing to be clear on is that make sure first, when you're identifying an agency to connect with, that you understand the agency's program, the agency's mission, and the specific program goals within that agency. Various agencies have very, very different missions. Programs within the agencies have very different missions. So make sure that you have an understanding of the goals and the priorities of the programs that you are reaching out to connect to. Ask very specific questions. Make sure that your questions are informed. Take time to do some research on the program that you are considering submitting to. You can go into any of the government websites to find past proposals that have been funded and look at the types of things that are being funded. Naomi had mentioned that program officers will be able to support you by talking about portfolio priorities within a program. So a lot of times if a program officer sees or a program sees a lot of very similar research proposals coming in, there might be gaps in the portfolio that have an increased interest in being funded. So those are some questions, very specific, informed questions that you might be able to ask of your program officer. And then just from the professionalism standpoint, follow up with a thank you email or a summary of what you talked about. Follow up with a specific timeline for when you might reach back out. Anything that will keep that conversation going is an effective way to communicate. And I believe we have another Zoom poll here. So Christine, if you could publish that. And so consider the fact that you emailed a federal program officer a week ago to get feedback on your upcoming proposal submission, but you've not received a response. What are you most likely to do? And we all know that when proposal submission deadlines are approaching, stress starts to increase. Everybody wants a quick response. Are we looking over there? Okay. The majority of you say email the federal program officer again, noting that you are following up on a previous email. That's a really great suggestion. a lot of times emails get buried. Also consider picking up the phone. But know that as submission deadlines approach, workload also increases again with a lot of people reaching out and trying to communicate. So just be considerate. Understand that, like I said, those workloads do increase the closer you get. One thing that I would say related to this is if you are researching a program that you are interested in submitting to and you see multiple program officers listed, do not email them separately. It's always best to email. If you email multiple program officers about a particular question, copy them in the same email and let them know that you are emailing each of them together so that you don't get multiple responses from multiple program officers and using people's time in that way. It's best just to email everybody at the same time. All right, Naomi, next slide, please. And then maintaining this relationship. Again, respecting everyone's time, preparing questions and updates before meetings or calls, providing timely reports and honest updates, keep communication channels open, even between grant cycles. And then be sure to share success stories, photos, progress summaries, especially when students are involved. So things to consider. Understand that program officers will not typically discuss competitiveness. They will not discuss any chances for something to be funded. A program officer will say that they believe this is a great idea, but also understand too that there's no way at any time that a program officer is going to know what all is coming in to be reviewed until the submission deadline passes. So there's no way I could sit here and say, yeah, I think that's a really great idea. But that doesn't mean anything about how a proposal is going to be reviewed. Make sure that when you're building those relationships, again, I said this before, connect with the program officers at conferences and other in-person events. Make sure that people, put yourself in front of them. Make sure that they know who you are. But the big question here is that I get a lot of time, what's the ideal time for connecting, or when's the ideal time to connect with a program officer? The ideal time to connect with a program officer is the moment you have an idea. And keep in mind too, that make sure that you identify when through the program goals, through your research of the program, when the proposal deadlines are. A lot of agencies are starting to move to rolling deadlines, which supports people developing and submitting programs as they come up. But if there's a specific deadline to submit a proposal, make sure that you back that timeline up a few months, several months, and reach out to the program officer and have a conversation about what it is that you're proposing. I'll pass this over to Karen now. Thank you.
One moment, Chris. There's a question in the Q&A from Craig Schlutenhofer.
Okay.
Chris, you mentioned under asking specific informed questions about the PO filling program gaps. I did not catch all of that information. Can you please clarify?
Absolutely. So a solicitation or an RFP will be asking for specific proposals around a given topic. And a lot of times, a program officer will know their program's portfolio very well. They'll know exactly the types of projects that have been funded, and they'll also know the gap areas within the portfolio that there might not have been a lot of proposals that have come in. And so that's a really great question to be able to ask of a program officer to say, does this fill a specific gap area in a portfolio? And a program officer can certainly talk about things that have been funded. You can find that information on the website. It's public information. But then there's also an honest conversation that you can have about gap areas in a portfolio. And that's when, if I were talking to a program officer about an idea that they might have, I would say at that time, this is a really great idea. And I think that it would fit a gap area within the proposal or the solicitation very well within the portfolio. So those are great questions that you can ask when you contact a program officer. All right, I'll pass this over to Karen.
Chris, actually, I'm sorry. We have one more question I think goes along with what you were just talking about. It says from patients, how would someone identify the PO that best fits their research?
So the best thing to do is to identify the directorate. So let me just give you an example of the National Science Foundation. Identify a directorate that best fits your work. So whether it's math and physical sciences, whether it's STEM education, whether it's social and behavioral economics, identify what directorate it is. And now with the recent changes to the National Science Foundation, the directorates are no more, or the divisions are no more. Now they're all programs. So you can identify what program, you can drill down and identify what specific programs your research would align best to. In the solicitations themselves or the Dear Colleague letters, there's going to be cognizant program officers listed, or for in general, it could just be a program email. Now, when the program emails are provided, that email goes to everyone within that program. So research what program that is, email the program contact information, and then you'll hear back from them. Karen, do you have other suggestions for how that works at the Department of Ed?
So once you submit something to the department, you don't necessarily have an email other than of the directors, and the directors can then funnel you out to the person you would be working with.
Excellent. Very well.
Okay, hello everyone. So this section is what would you do? So you can either drop your answer in the chat or you can come off mute and answer live. So our first scenario, what would you do? You emailed a one-page summary to a federal program officer about an upcoming submission. The feedback was that the project was not a good fit for their program. What would you do? And if you would like to raise your hand to come off mute, you can do that.
Christine, you've got a hand.
Hello, Patience. Do you have a response?
Yes, I think what I would do is that I will go back and look at the the statement of the program and why is it that it was not a good fit for what I submitted. So based on that, then I'll be able to email them to for example, if I found out that it's a good fit based on what is being listed, then I might email them to know what I should have done right or what I did wrong so that I don't make the same mistake again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Anyone else want to come off mute? And I see some great suggestions in the chat. Some of them are things like they would find another project, they would ask to meet with the program officer, they would find another program that may be a better fit. They would look for other funding or develop another project. They would ask to recommend another program. They would thank them for reviewing the summary and ask if there is a program that they think would be a better fit, which is a perfect response. Because what you want to do is you're trying to build a collaborative relationship. and getting back to the program officer and saying, hey, can we chat and talk about why you thought it wasn't a good fit, or can you steer me in the direction of someone else? And that's just building and managing good relationships and having good skills and helping you shine a light on what you want to do. Next scenario. The next scenario, your organization holds a federal grant to provide training services. The federal program officer expresses expectations of activities that were not approved in the budget. The federal program officer indicates it will enhance the project, but it will cause a budget overrun and jeopardize the primary deliverables. What would you do? Would anyone like to come off mute and take a stab at this? So I am seeing things like ask about availability of supplements, ask if they recommend another program, find another idea. Maybe try another program officer, request the federal program officer help connect with a better fit. I'll ask if there's another program officer. I will call to see how it can be streamlined, speak with the program officer to see how you can adjust the deliverables. These are all great answers. One of the things that I would say is to breathe, because I know that when you see something like this and you already have your budget outlined and it's a tight budget, it does send your hairs up on your head. So breathe, think about what they've asked you to do. Perhaps ask for a meeting and talk about how you can also do this while maintaining the constraints of your tight budget. Perhaps talk about other proposals that would help you still meet the deliverables while paying for this. Work with them and say, well, perhaps we can fit this into another portion of the work. Is there other funding? This again is a way for you to build that relationship and talk with that program officer and work through the problem here. And do ask for clarity. And then also go back to what the notice says about what you're proposing to make sure that you're in alignment with what you're supposed to do. And bring up those issues with your program officer so that you can really problem solve in an effective way. Next slide, please. So, sustaining long-term relationships. These are some of the things that we feel are really great ways for you to sustain and manage those relationships, because your goal is to keep your funding stream coming. Become a reviewer for other programs that are having some of the same kinds of work that you want to do. Stay connected even after your work is over. Um, Participate in webinars and trainings. Sign up for listservs. There are tons of listservs. Make sure that you're signed up for grants.gov. All of those areas can help you maintain and build your relationships, and you can start to meet more and more people. Offer constructive feedback to program administrators. They want to hear that information. They want to know what the field is saying, what's out there, what things look like on the other side. Introduce yourself in person as you go to conferences, to other events. Build a reputation to be a reliable person who will be good steward of the federal funds. Make sure that you're collaborating with your program officer, because remember, this is a relationship that you want to keep strong and build, because you all are partners in this work. You're not in it in isolation. So keep that in the back of your mind, that this is my partner in this work. Next slide. Common mistakes to avoid: ignoring communications or delays in responses. Don't ever be afraid to share information, because remember, this is your partner in building out your work. So you want to be very honest with your partner, because your partner is going to help you problem solve and figure things out. Make sure that you're always submitting your reports on time. And if you can't submit those on time, because that does happen, get with your program officer and say, hey, look, I'm not able to finish all of this. We don't have all the data that we need. Can I just submit this portion and share with you the other portion on another date? They're always willing to work with you. And please don't overstep by requesting exceptions without justifications. Treat your relationship, don't treat it as a transactional relationship. You want this to be a good, strong, healthy relationship that you're building, so you can keep work moving and maintain the work that you're doing. And a tip for all of this work is know your reporting deadlines. Communicate as early as you can if things are going to not come out the way you thought they would, because we know things happen and people are always understanding, but they're more understanding if you're honest and upfront with them about what's happening. And that is it. And thank you so much. I will turn it over to Naomi.
All right. So I have the last slide for summary and key takeaways. And so I think one of the main things that we want to leave you with is that federal program officers want to see you succeed. And we are more than welcome, more than happy to be partners in your success. Believe me, federal program officers want to give away all of the money. There are no carryovers in the federal budget process. And so there is no reason to try to not give all of the money away. Unspent funds do not stay with the agencies, so there is no benefit to that. So please keep that in mind, that we want to see you succeed and we want to give you money. Consistent communication builds trust. Communication is always key. Chris mentioned about sharing success stories, especially about student involvement. I also want to encourage you to share unexpected things that happened and how you pivoted to take care of that, because that's also really important. That lets us know that you are not defeated. Something happens that you didn't expect, you regroup, you pivot, and you figure a way to get it done. Excuse me. Professionalism and preparedness stands out. Being prepared is really important. As Chris noted, federal program officers are really, really busy, especially during the submission and the review cycles. So being prepared and being timely with your questions and concerns, and like Karen said, especially as it relates to things like reports, budgeting concerns, is really key. So next steps. Right. Review your current relationship or your current federal program officer relationships. If you're happy, wonderful. If you're interested in getting to know other federal program officers, I'm really sorry, excuse me, at other agencies, make a plan, right, to reach out to a program officer in a different program, in a different area or a different agency. So do a little research, like the award search at an agency that you're interested in. Find out who the program officer or program officers are on awards that are within your same area. Identifying opportunities to strengthen connections. We've said this more than once in this short webinar. Reach out try to make connections, take the opportunity to meet them. Federal program officers are usually at the larger conferences in their topic area. So for instance, I'm a psychologist by training. Chances are I probably would attend APA. It's a perfect time to email them, or I should say, it's perfectly fine to email them, ask them if they plan to attend a particular conference. Also, keep in mind, sometimes you may be aware of certain conferences, whether they're regional or niche sort of conferences that the program officer is not aware of. So it's also very cool to send them that information and maybe they can attend, but ask them if they plan to attend conferences, and if so, do they have time to meet for coffee or to chat about an idea you have? Most program officers will build in time in their outreach agendas to meet with folks. And so we just encourage you to apply these strategies in your next engagement. And so we purposely wanted to leave some time for some question and discussions, but before we do that, we'll say thank you. Here are our contact information, or here's our contact information, as well as QR codes for the QEM events website, as well as the HEROES website, which I mentioned earlier, has the information for the fellows, their former agencies, and also areas of expertise. So I will stop there. Christine, do you want me to take the slide off, or?
You can leave it up for a few minutes just so people have time to use the QR code. We do have a question that I think is important, and it's from Gulnaz Javan. The question is, how should investigators respond if a program officer discourages submission?
Yeah, so this was the conversation we were having when during the scenario that Karen shared. I think the best way to reconcile this is to schedule a meeting, ask for a meeting, and ask them what specifically limitations that the idea might have. Understand that I also noticed through what patients shared and some of the responses in the chat, this doesn't mean it's a mistake in the way that you've proposed. You have an idea. That idea is a solid idea. It just means that it might not be a good fit for the particular program that you were trying to submit to. Ask the program officer for other ideas of where it should be submitted, where it would be better aligned to submit. But don't change your research idea just because it might not fit a particular program. Find the program that fits your research idea. That's what you're most passionate about. Keep going with that passion. Don't change that just because the particular program doesn't align to it. Karen?
And that's why you should reach out to the program officer, because they can steer you in the right direction. That's why it's really important to build these strong relationships. Because again, as Chris and Naomi have said, we want you to succeed. We're not here to not help you succeed, but sometimes your work may not be appropriate for this particular thing, but it may be appropriate for something else. And they can always steer you again in another direction, or they can give you some resources and say, hey, have you looked at adding this to what you have already generated? Because this might make it more robust. So make sure that you're doing those kinds of things, because we're not telling you to put a pin in the work that you want to do. Because if you believe in that work, keep that work going and just figure out how you can make it land where you want it to land.
I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Naomi. I was just going to say really quickly that, I've had this happen too before my time at NSF when I contacted a program officer and they made a recommendation of other colleagues to consider partnering with. And so a program officer is going to know the work at a national level. They're going to know other people who are doing very similar things. And rather than reinventing the wheel, they're going to encourage you to reach out to other folks who might be doing similar work to collaborate with, to partner with. And so this is also another great reason why to reach out to a program officer to have them help you establish those connections that you might not be familiar with. Sorry, Naomi, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I actually was going to say I didn't have anything else to add. I thought the response was great. So,
Now, folks, if someone would like to ask a question live verbally, please raise your hand or type your question in the Q&A box.
And while we're waiting on that, I would just reiterate not to be discouraged. If you don't hear back right away, if you try reaching out to a particular program officer and you don't get a response, don't be discouraged. The question previously about how do you know which program officers you should reach out to, a lot of times you might not. And so, especially when you have an alias email address for a specific program and you don't know who that email is going to, if you don't hear back from that, reach out to someone in a similar program and ask them to help you. Everyone wants to align the folks that come in with the program that best supports them or that best aligns them to their work. So don't be discouraged. Continue going after it. Just know that especially in the current climate, the funding climate, that everybody's got a lot going on. So try to be as patient as possible.
And as Chris said, I just want to leave you with this. Words matter. And again, building those strong relationships, as we talked about, folks are very busy. And just again, someone put in the chat earlier, you send the email and thank them for taking the time to respond back to you. And all of those things mean a lot to people that are under lots of pressure right now. So I think you all are off to a good start just from what I'm seeing in your responses in the chat.
go ahead, Christine. I'll wait.
And if there are no more questions, we will end this presentation. I want to thank everyone for attending today. This was a wonderful presentation. There are more queued up, so please visit the QEM events page and visit our Heroes webpage to connect to our heroes. Oh, we have a raised hand, so let's continue. Oh, that person took their hand away. Okay.
I also wanted to verbally say, it's been put in the chat, but I wanted to verbally say, please go and fill out the feedback questionnaire, the chat that's in the chat, so that we can make these even better and better as we move along.
Thank you very much to our panelists and our attendees.